Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another video. Before I get started, I have to give a massive thank you to everyone who's been supporting me through this copyright issue that I've been having, where basically all of my videos have been flagged by this company called HORRORS Music. Now I've got some good news actually. As of now, and this is partially because of the noise you guys helped make on social media, all of the currently claimed videos have been released by HORRORS Music. So we'll have to see how that works in the future, whether they will continue to claim whatever I put out now. But either way, thank you guys so much, and thank you to everyone who took the time to send me a nice message of support. I didn't have a chance to answer them all, but I read every single one, and I appreciate them greatly. Anyway, today we'll be talking about something that for some reason has been asked a bunch on the channel recently, and while I have covered it in other videos, I don't think I've done so in one specific place, and that is what happens if you get stuck in hyperspace. And I'm just going to expand that more broadly to ask what happens if your hyperdrive fails, or if your hyperspace jump is unsuccessful. For those who don't know, hyperspace in Star Wars is a different dimension. It allows starships to travel vast distances within a relatively short period of time. It's one of several dimensions in Star Wars. Other dimensions include other space, and perhaps also the dimension that Waru comes from, and Waru is an interdimensional creature featured in the novel The Crystal Star. And on that point, before I get on to the topic, I was reading the excellent Despoilers of an Empire article on StarWars.com, which was an old Legends piece about Imperial warlords, and part 3 actually makes reference to the Anti-Force being in other space. The Anti-Force is big in Waru's story and kind of suggests that Waru's universe and other space are actually one in the same, and I'll talk about that perhaps later or in another video. But it's the whole strangeness of other space which really offers this danger. It's not as bad as, say, the warp from Warhammer 40,000, but there is still the serious possibility of being trapped. The first way is pretty simple, and actually is legend specific. In Star Wars canon, if you're in a spaceship and somehow leave that spaceship which is traveling through hyperspace, you simply revert to real space. However, in Star Wars Legends, if you're in hyperspace and eject in a non-hyperspace capable vehicle, you basically get stuck in hyperspace forever. So imagine a Star Destroyer launches a TIE in hyperspace. That vessel will now be stuck in hyperspace for eternity, with no engine to return it to real space. I've mentioned this in a prior video, but Neil Spar, who led the Avathan Duskon League, was punished at the end of the Black Fleet Crisis for his crimes against the galaxy, basically by being shuttled into hyperspace and left to go insane and die. And the thing is, it wasn't always people who were thrown into hyperspace or forced into hyperspace without an engine. Sometimes ships would have malfunctions that could result in either being ejected to real space, which could be really crappy in its own right because it means you're literally in the middle of nowhere. We saw that happen to, for example, Luke Skywalker in the Thrawn trilogy, and it was okay for him because he's a Jedi, so he had certain techniques which he could use to slow down his breathing and basically allow himself to survive and maintain the ship's supply of oxygen and whatnot. But for many others, if you're knocked out of hyperspace, that's certain death. I mean, the Star Wars movies don't really show this, but the galaxy is extraordinarily large, and the space between planets is, well, astronomical. It's really not practical to fly on sublight drives between systems, so you'll have to drop some sort of navigational buoy and hope for the best. However, also there's a chance that maybe your hyperdrive breaks and sends you into the middle of a star or a planet. That is probably what happened to the Praetor-class battlecruiser the Questor, which had a hyperdrive failure, propelling it into a planet which it proceeded to destroy alongside itself, of course. Alright, so if your hyperdrive breaks, we've covered 3 things that can happen so far. You get stuck in hyperspace, you get stuck in real space, and probably the middle of nowhere when you just look at the size of the galaxy and the proportion of it that's populated, or you crash into a planet, or another stellar body, or some sort of black hole, and you die an instant and comparably merciful death. However, is that all that can happen? Well, no. We've spoken already of other space, and I've mentioned it in prior videos, so some of you probably know what it is. However, other space is a third dimension, somewhat aside real space and hyperspace, that seems to be an inverted version of reality. The sky looks the exact opposite as it does in regular space. There's something called the anti-force there, most likely. Waru probably lives there. And if you have a hyperdrive malfunction, so could you. The Other Space West End Games books have a pretty cool story about rebel ships getting stuck in the other dimension after a hyperdrive malfunction, and how the violent race known as the Charon want to escape. But I think I've covered that all sufficiently in the past, and I'll try to link to one of my prior videos in the upper right hand corner. The West End Games source books of that era especially are more fun than really concrete lore or anything, but I still think Other Space has been integrated enough in later continuity that it deserves a mention in this video. Similarly, aside from being sent to another dimension, you can also be sent even outside of the Star Wars galaxy, as was the case with Luke and Leia in issue 38 of the original Star Wars run, where they're basically sent to the intergalactic void, an even worse place to be than just stranded in the middle of the galaxy. But there are even worse things that can happen due to hyperspace malfunctions or hyperspace weirdness. The Sith capital ship Harbinger made a jump with a malfunctioning hyperdrive and ended up 5,000 years into the future. Something similar, albeit on a much smaller scale, happened to R2-D2 and C-3PO in the Star Wars Droids comics as they went from before the Battle of Yavin to the time of Return of the Jedi after a hyperdrive malfunction caused by weapons damage. But presumably that would be pretty rare and would only happen to you if you were in a bit of a wackier Star Wars story. But that's all I have for today, guys. Basically, if your hyperdrive fails, you're going to end up in the middle of a planet or dying slowly in the middle of space, perhaps being haunted by wraiths or other disturbing deep space creatures. Or perhaps you'll be stuck in hyperspace and will succumb to hyperspace madness. Or maybe you'll get stuck in other space, or maybe jump ahead to the future. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting that like button and subscribing. No hashtag AskEck video today. I will get to another one next video, but until then, have a great one, guys. Be safe, wash your hands, don't let anyone cough on you, even if they are a cyborg CIS general, and of course, may the Force be with you.